A quiet revolution was about to shake the tech world, and no one saw it coming. At a prestigious tech fair in Berlin, where the world's most powerful inventors and CEOs paraded their latest machines, something extraordinary happened. From a country the world had overlooked, a young leader from Africa stepped forward and changed everything. In mere minutes, he left tech moguls like Elon Musk and the BYD leadership team stunned and speechless. But was his invention truly as groundbreaking as it seemed, and what truth lies beneath this electrifying moment? The Berlin International Conference Center buzzed with energy. Inside, the atmosphere was charged with money, power, and big promises about the future. The Global Future Mobility Forum had become a battleground for electric vehicle supremacy. Everyone was playing their part. Tesla took over the Eastern Wing with flashy holograms of sleek cars and AI demos. Elon Musk, the face of futuristic tech, had arrived earlier that morning, drawing swarms of media and admirers. Next door, BYD showcased its army of perfectly aligned electric cars. Their executives moved like kings, dressed in designer suits. Mercedes flaunted its hydrogen-powered lineup with typical German precision, while BMW's electric models shone beneath spotlight perfection. French car makers whispered about government support and eco-friendly deals. Everything looked exactly how it always did, Western innovation leading, China catching up fast, and the rest of the world watching from the sidelines. But in a quiet corner of the hall, things were different. Hidden behind a modest banner stood a small, almost invisible group, the delegation from Burkina Faso. Their space was a formality, a nod to global inclusivity. No one expected them to matter. Their president, Ibrahim Traoré, didn't wear a suit. He wore military fatigues. Some laughed. Others assumed he didn't understand international etiquette. They were wrong, dead wrong. At just 34, Traoré had seen war and poverty. But he had also seen possibility. And standing beside him were three people who had helped him chase that vision. Dr. Minata, a brilliant mechanical engineer educated in Europe but deeply committed to her homeland. Professor Sadou, a solar energy pioneer who had spent years perfecting systems for harsh African climates. And Mayam Compare, a battery tech genius whose breakthrough ideas were born not in labs, but from necessity. No media paid them attention. No investors cared. They were invisible. Then everything changed. A low, unfamiliar hum rolled in from the loading docks. Not the clunky noise of half-finished concept cars, but something smoother, more confident. Heads turned, conversations stopped. Even Tesla's press briefing began to lose its crowd. What was this sound? Then it appeared. A matte black vehicle rolled into the hall. It looked nothing like the chrome-heavy showpieces around it. This car absorbed light. It looked built for real roads, not photo ops. But what truly shocked the crowd were the solar panels, not clunky add-ons, but seamless parts of the car's design. And above the grille, not a corporate logo, but the laser-etched flag of Burkina Faso. Gasps filled the air. It parked quietly, near the Burkina Faso display. For the first time all day, the hall went silent. Journalists stared. Analysts froze. President Traoré calmly stepped forward and placed his hand on the hood. Then he nodded. Dr. Minata climbed into the driver's seat. The door shut with a clean, confident thud. She pressed a button and the air shimmered with holograms. But these weren't vague marketing buzzwords. These were hard numbers. 0 emissions, 720 kilometers of range on a single charge, 12-minute solar. Recharge under peak sunlight, manufacturing costs far below industry averages. Battery chemistry, energy recovery systems, breakthrough after breakthrough filled the air. And then the name appeared. La Resilience. The Resilience. People were stunned. Elon Musk was pulled from his VIP suite. Annoyed at first, he stopped cold when he saw the display. His expression shifted from skepticism to focus, then to disbelief. "Who built this?" he whispered. "Burkina Faso," his aide replied. "Led by their president. No outside help. All local work." Musk stood still. It didn't make sense. This kind of breakthrough couldn't come from a country he'd never watched. On the other side of the hall, BYD executives were panicking. Too, the numbers on display were the holy grail of EV engineering, and they hadn't seen it coming. Their chief strategist called the CEO in Shanghai. "This changes everything," he said. The CEO, shocked, asked, "Which Western company backed them?" "None. It's all theirs." In that moment, the world realized the rules had changed. But the story behind LA Resilience was even more astonishing. When Traoré became president, the world mocked him. Media called him a wannabe. Investors pulled out. France distanced itself, and he announced the EV project. People laughed. How Could a country with unreliable electricity build electric cars? But Traore wasn't building for applause, he was building for independence. He turned to local universities, farmers, inventors, mechanics, they all pitched in. No fancy labs, no billionaire donors, just grit, talent, and purpose. Engineers worked in secret in an underground lab built beneath an old textile factory. They built their own tools from scrap. They solved problems with what they had, and every month Traore visited not with speeches, but with supplies, answers, and faith. Now, standing in Berlin, it had all paid off. When Traore finally stepped forward to speak, the room fell silent. No script, no stage tricks, just words that hit like lightning. For too long, he said, the world has believed innovation only flows from a few places, that the rest of us can only consume, not create. Today, we offer another vision. We don't ask for permission. We show results. He gestured to the car. This is what we can build when we believe in our own hands, our own minds, our own future. The crowd was breathless. La Resilience wasn't just a car, it was proof that innovation can rise from anywhere, that the world's next tech giant might not come from Silicon Valley, or Beijing, or Berlin, but from the heart of Africa, and this time, the world was watching. Sure, here is your rephrased version of the entire script, fully cleaned of timestamps and reworded line by line while preserving its tone, structure, and emotional impact. They were willing to persevere until belief transformed into reality. Traore's final words resonated with a deeper message. What had been achieved wasn't just a feat of engineering. It was a philosophical turning point. Innovation doesn't belong to any one country, any particular economic model, or any single way of organizing human effort. It belongs to those who dare, to those who merge knowledge, tenacity, and the audacity to pursue the impossible. As his speech ended, a profound stillness filled the room. Then came the applause, but it wasn't the kind of polite clapping that usually follows presentations. This was something else. It was a thunderous, rising wave of appreciation, the kind that only erupts when people realize they've just witnessed something historic. The sound grew, swelling as words spread through the exhibition center. Delegates abandoned their own booths, competitors forgot their rivalries, and even staff members joined in. But the most telling reactions came from the industry heavyweights who had dominated earlier parts of the conference. Elon Musk, scheduled to speak about sustainable transportation, quietly exited the building. Whatever he had prepared suddenly felt obsolete. When asked about Burkina Faso's breakthrough, he offered no comment. Representatives from BYD requested an urgent private meeting with the Burkina Faso team, likely to explore licensing deals or strategic partnerships. Traore respectfully declined. His government wasn't interested in recreating old hierarchies. They sought collaborations grounded in mutual respect, not new forms of dependency. Germany's Minister of Technology approached Traore with a proposal to create research collaborations between German universities and Burkina Faso's technical institutions. Traore listened carefully, then responded with calm clarity. We welcome genuine partnerships, but we've learned to recognize the difference between cooperation and control. We choose the former. His words underscored a larger truth. Resilience wasn't just a technological marvel. It was a bold rejection of the global structures that had long kept African nations on the periphery of innovation. It signaled a shift, a redefinition of how international relationships in science and industry could be structured. European automakers who had dismissed the Burkina Faso team as irrelevant were now scrambling to understand the threat or resilience posed. The specs alone made it a competitor. Its innovations offered answers to problems that their R&D departments hadn't solved. Investors who had previously ignored Africa began to wonder, what else are we missing? In just 48 hours, LA Resilience went from an exhibition curiosity to a global phenomenon. Videos of the reveal went viral. Experts on every continent were still trying to make sense of what they had seen. The phrase Africa's Sputnik moment began trending, a sign that the global power balance in tech might be shifting. The surge of attention brought both excitement and obstacles. 37 African countries formally requested access to the blueprints, hoping to jumpstart their own innovation movements. A Ghanaian investment group proposed setting up regional assembly lines. Senegal's president publicly declared that LA Resilience had proven Africa could lead, not just consume technological change. But not everyone responded with admiration. Some international media outlets ran skeptical pieces, questioning the authenticity of the vehicle's specs. Others implied foreign involvement or a staged demonstration. Venture capital firms offered enormous sums but with terms that would wrest control of the tech from Burkina Faso. Tech giants proposed licensing agreements that offered short-term gains at the cost of long-term sovereignty. Development organizations dangled funding, but with oversight and conditions that risked suffocating the very independence that had made this innovation possible. Throughout it all, President Traore remained steady. He accepted praise gracefully, but refused to let it become a distraction. He turned down any offer that would compromise the country's control over its technology, while keeping the door open to respectful collaborations. And most striking of all, he rejected the global media spotlight. Instead of embarking on a world tour of interviews and forums, he boarded a flight back to Ouagadougou. His first meeting upon return wasn't with investors or journalists. It was with rural engineers and community leaders working on battery recycling in remote villages. That choice spoke volumes. For Traore, technology wasn't about prestige, it was about impact. The recycling initiative was more than just an environmental project. It was an extension of the same philosophy that birthed LA Resilience. It created jobs, developed local skills, and addressed real issues. Village cooperatives were being trained to recover valuable materials from used batteries, turning waste into opportunity. In places where employment was scarce, this initiative provided incomes, hope, and technical knowledge that would support future EV adoption. The program wasn't just working, it was thriving. Young people were staying in their villages, gaining skills, and contributing to a growing green economy. Rural tech workers were feeding real-world data back into the national R&D efforts. This grassroots stool lab feedback loop ensured that innovation stayed grounded in reality and accessible to all. For Traore, LA Resilience wasn't the endgame, it was just the start. He was already envisioning solar-powered water purification systems using the same technology developed for EV charging, agricultural equipment powered by battery packs refined in EV trials, communication infrastructure built on energy storage, breakthroughs. More than anything, LA Resilience proved that game-changing innovation could emerge from unconventional partnerships. Scientists, farmers, mechanics, policymakers, all collaborating beyond traditional silos. This model of collective problem-solving was spreading to other sectors, creating a national ecosystem of innovation fueled not by capital, but by shared purpose. Meanwhile, the international automotive world was reeling. LA Resilience had appended assumptions about where innovation comes from, how markets behave, and what counts as competitive advantage. Tesla, caught off guard, quietly launched internal investigations. Leaked memos later revealed that their engineers were stunned by LA Resilience's solar capabilities, tech they hadn't yet matched. Tesla's model was built on enormous R&D budgets and global supply chains. But if a team with limited funding could outperform them using local resources, it raised unsettling questions about the sustainability of their edge. BYD faced a different problem. Their rise had come from exploiting overlooked markets and anticipating global shifts. But LA Resilience addressed needs they had missed: extended range, off-grid charging, rugged design. It filled a gap they hadn't seen. Worse, it exposed their blind spot, the assumption that Africa lacked the capacity for serious innovation. European automakers faced the greatest challenge. Their relationships with African countries were layered with historical baggage. Their confidence rested on legacy institutions, vast budgets, and elite technical personnel. But LA Resilience proved that none of that was necessary. A nimble, collaborative team could reach the same results or better without those advantages. Germany's offer of research collaboration signaled a realization that the old top-down model of aid and knowledge transfer was obsolete. Yet Traore's reply made clear, true partnership means equality, not supervision. This distinction between dependency and dignity lay at the heart of LA Resilience's message. For too long, African innovation had been seen as derivative, dependent, or secondary. This vehicle shattered that myth. It showed that with the right support and space, African countries could lead. And when they lead, they do so on their own terms. For investors, this was a shock. Their standard playbook, proven Western ideas into emerging markets, was now in question. LA Resilience didn't fit their metrics. No elite university teams. No celebrity founders. No billion-dollar backers. Just a coalition of builders, thinkers, and dreamers solving problems their own way. This realization was destabilizing. If innovation could succeed outside their frameworks, it meant they were overlooking massive opportunities. It also meant that their current models for evaluating and supporting tech ventures might be outdated, especially in Africa. Development agencies were similarly stunned. Their entire approach was built on the idea that Africa needed training, transfer, and supervision. But LA resilience had flourished without any of those things, and, perhaps because of that very absence, this raised uncomfortable questions. Were traditional development models helping or hurting? Was the assumption of African dependency not just wrong, but counterproductive? The ripple effects of LA resilience reached deeper than any vehicle revealed. It challenged the ideological foundations of global inequality. For decades, the narrative had been that high technology belonged to the West and parts of Asia because of natural advantages. But LA resilience exposed that myth as a construct. It wasn't about nature. It was about access, resources, and freedom to experiment. This one vehicle shattered centuries-old beliefs about where genius lives, and in doing so, it began rewriting the rules of global innovation. For young Africans wondering whether to pursue STEM careers at home or abroad, this was a revelation. They could build the future here, in African labs, in African languages, with African priorities. Universities across the continent began re-evaluating their research goals. Governments launched new funding programs. What happened in Burkina Faso wasn't seen as an outlier, it was a blueprint. And perhaps the most radical message of all, this kind of innovation wasn't just an African possibility, it was a human one. It showed that breakthrough ideas don't require massive budgets or towering institutions. They require collaboration, belief, and a relentless focus on solving real problems. As global conversations swelled, some tried to discredit the achievement. Some called it a fluke. Others insisted foreign hands must have been involved. But these reactions said more about the biases of the critics than the creators. The truth was undeniable. Innovation is everywhere. Talent is everywhere. What's rare is support and the freedom to try. So as the spotlight turned to Burkina Faso's next move, its engineers got back to work, quietly, confidently, fueled by the knowledge that they had already changed the world once and could do it again. Because in the end, LA resilience wasn't just a vehicle, it was a declaration. A challenge to everything the world thought it knew about innovation, power, and possibility. And maybe, just maybe, the future of innovation will come from the places we least expect. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you believe Africa's tech revolution is just beginning, make sure to subscribe for more stories that are rewriting the global script.